aside from the drums, everything that you just heard was generated in real time just using this guitar. Like me, you might not be much of a keyboard player, but you want to explore sounds beyond those of typical guitar tones, which is what led me to the wonderful world of MIDI guitar like this jam stick here that I'm using today. And bonus, a MIDI guitar can do something that a keyboard can't, which is just sound like a real guitar. I can play all of my synths and sample libraries and guitar parts at the same time. So that means that I can take this and turn it into this. No offense to guitar in general, but that was way cooler, and now I'm gonna show you how I did it. Today I am using Ableton Live. You definitely don't have to use Ableton to do this, but it is extremely powerful when it comes to MIDI and all of the sort of routing and stuff that we have to do, especially if you wanna do looping, which is kind of how I came to doing all of this in the first place. The primary way that I'm able to make this sound really exciting and cool is that I don't have to be stuck with just flat pad type sounds like this organ, which is happening during the verse, but I can create sounds with a bunch of movement using something called an arpeggiator. All an arpeggiator does is take the MIDI from a static chord like this one and play the individual notes one at a time in a preset pattern like this. One of the reasons I wanted to use Live for this is because they have a really simple built-in arpeggiator that you can use. This harp, which is the Elysium harp from Sound Iron, happens to have a built-in arpeggiator that's a little bit more harpy, if you will. I've put together two completely different sounds for this song, one for the verse and one for the chorus. Here's the verse, then the chorus. And the way that I'm switching between the two is with my mind. I'm just kidding, I have an expression pedal under the desk. All I did was take all the instruments for the verse and put them in one group and all the instruments for the chorus and put them in another. And then I just used Ableton's MIDI mapping to set the expression pedal to be the volumes for each of those groups, but one of them is inverted. So when I turn one all the way up, the other one goes all the way down. In order to keep the arrangement from becoming a muddy mess, I'm dividing everything up by tonal register and rhythmic subdivisions. By sending only certain sets of strings to each instrument, they're gonna blend a lot better and keep to the range where they sound the best. And with different subdivisions, they won't be occupying the same rhythmic space. For example, the harp is listening to all 6 strings, right? So it's gonna arpeggiate all of the notes that I give it. But I don't want the low end of the organ to muddy up the waters, so it's not hearing either of these strings, only these 3. So that allows me to carve out a little niche in the frequency spectrum for each instrument. One thing that I really don't want is the bass arpeggiating all the way up and down with everything else. I want the bass to just hang out on one note. The sound that I'm using for the bass during the verse is also called Elysium. It's a synthesizer from Wide Blue Sound. And it's only listening to the E string. It's not getting any information from all these other strings. So no matter how much I play, we're only gonna hear the note that's on this low string. Here's the 2 Elysiums together, the harp and the bass. Then we add in the organ and the guitar. In order for this to work, everything has to be tempo synced together. Otherwise, a quarter note is meaningless, right? It's a quarter note at 140 BPM, which is what we have here. So I'm sort of thinking of each instrument's part as more like what kind of subdivisions we're looking at. For example, the bass is these 1/8 notes, right? And then the harp is also eighth notes, but it's arpeggiating all over the place. So it's not just the same bam, 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 bam chord over and over again. And then the guitar and the Hammond are sustained, just more or less whole notes. So here I've got the choir and the strings that you're hearing. How do they know to play the same stuff at the same time? The reason is because I'm using the same arpeggiator in front of the whole instance of Sign Player, so it's triggering all of the 3 different libraries that I've got here at the same time using the same notes. I've got them all receiving on the same MIDI channel. Here's what it sounds like if I turn the arpeggiator off. Then they just hear all the notes at once. But the arpeggiator sort of feeds it to them one at a time. I actually have this one on random, so every single performance is actually going to be completely different. In front of the arpeggiator, I've actually got this velocity block that turns all of the MIDI notes that it receives into a 127 velocity, so everything is as hard as it could possibly be. Phrasing. So this is the Orchestral Tools Sign Player, and I'm using the magnificent sounds from Metropolis Arc 1. I don't want a lot of low-end information out of this group, so the only strings that it's hearing are the top 4. Kind of keeps it in a nice little neat grouping and some pretty decent voice leading as well. But I do want a nice full low end just from a different instrument, so I have a whole other instance of Sign Player loaded up with some low brass, and that gives us this nastiness. These horns are from the Tom Holkenborg's brass from Orchestral Tools, formerly Junkie XL brass. The low horns give it a lot of grandeur, which I really want, but I also want a really aggressive metal bass guitar tone, so I've also got Singularity from Spectre Digital. Here's just the bass guitar and the low horns together.
Ominous.
The high horn sound that you're hearing are these Session Horns Pro from E Instruments. I got it in the Contact Complete bundle. And the reason that I like these so much, aside from the fact that they just sound good, is because it has this built-in animator feature that has these actual realistic horn phrases that you can play. It's like an arpeggiator, but just way more interesting and realistic. The one I'm using is called Fanfare-esque, which was perfect because I wanted something that sounded like fanfare, but it has all of these styles. I can try this one. I have a ska one. Now here's all the chorus sounds all together. That sounds ridiculously good for everything being on one guitar in real time. Now, obviously, all of this is about setting it up to run more or less automatically in real time for live performance, because you only have 2 hands. But if what you want to do is learn how to actually compose and arrange symphonic metal from scratch, then what you're going to need is my brand new course, which is called Making Symphonic Metal with Free VSTs, because in there, I'm going to show you how I create epic symphonic metal using only free plugins. And it's going to be available at a discount for a limited time because of the launch, so you can find out more about that at the link in the description below. And now you're going to get to hear what this sounds like all together.
Hello.